Congressman LaSurette, thanks for joining us this week.
Chris?
So we're finally closing out what's been a busy July here on the Hill, as the House has actually gavelled out of session already, and the Senate is going to be on their way shortly for their August recess. So I wanted to briefly catch people up on what's been going on and what we can expect to see when Congress comes back. First off, there's been a lot of conversation, obviously, about the transportation bill. I feel like it's something that you and I have spoken about ad nauseum for the last couple of months.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about what's happened and what does it mean for the future?
Well, you know, I hate to say we were right, but we were right.
We always are.
The House had passed a 5-month extension. The Senate had passed a 6-year bill, but attached the Export-Import Bank to it. And the House signaled very early on that they weren't taking up the Senate bill, which then led to the 31st deadline that the Highway Trust Fund was going to run out of funds unless they did something. So the House, in typical House fashion, cobbled together a 3-month extension, goes to October the 29th, and left town. I mean, they're supposed to be
love doing that.
They're supposed to be here through Friday, and we got a notice that after votes on Wednesday, they were leaving town and they wouldn't be back until after Labor Day. So. That left the Senate with very few choices. You know, I mean, what are you going to do? And so, as a result, the Senate's going to acquiesce to the House bill. The president has sent the signal that he doesn't like it. He'd like to see the Export-Import Bank issue dealt with, but that he will sign it because of the importance of the issue. So, to fight another day, and you know, the thing that sort of amazes me, as we've talked about, is how they think it's going to get better by October the 29th, and all of a sudden they're going to solve this problem. I don't know, but the heads in the House said that we're only going to go 3 months, and they went 3 months, and so that'll be one of the things that they're going to have to deal with when they come back. The good news is that by extending the life of the Highway Trust Fund, the summer construction season won't be interrupted, and so all the people whose lives depend upon construction jobs and things of that nature will be able to continue to work throughout the summer.
You mentioned the Export-Import Bank, and supporters of reauthorization of the bank had hoped to attach it to a must-pass, must-sign piece of legislation like the transportation bill. As you mentioned, the Senate bill attached it. The House, before they left suddenly, passed their extension without Export-Import in it. What do you think this means long-term for supporters of reauthorization of the bank?
I think unless they get their act together, the Export-Import Bank is in trouble. They're going to remain open because they have a portfolio of about $106 billion of loans that have already been made that they have to manage. But the expiration of their charter means that they can't make new loans. And that basically affects American companies who are in the export business that need that bridge financing with foreign corporations to sell their products overseas, don't have that vehicle available to them. There's some people that feel very strongly about reauthorizing it, and the Chamber of Commerce is running ads here in Washington on a regular basis saying, you know, China has one, Korea has one, every country in the world has an Export-Import Bank except the United States. But it's become a cause célèbre in the Senate. Senator Ted Cruz, you know, made a lot of noise. He lost that issue on the transportation bill. But over in the House, the group of conservative Republicans that do not want to vote on the reauthorization of the Export-Import Bank seem to be winning at the moment. And it remains to be seen what work is done by its supporters over the August recess as members are back in their districts. And my sense is if they send businesses into their district offices during August and said, look, this is important, this is 100 jobs in your district, or whatever the case may be, that perhaps they can position themselves for a vote in September. But at the moment, you know, it doesn't look very good. As we said, there's only 12 legislative days, I think, in September when they come back before the end of the fiscal year. And one of those days, the Pope is coming to address Congress. And, you know, it's a sold-out event. They've passed a rule that former members can't come. Hardly anybody can go except current members and guests of the Speaker and the leadership. And so it's going to be a very hot ticket here, but it'll shut down because of security at least one of those 12 days.
Well, while inside the Beltway, kind of all the focus has been on the transportation bill, another issue has really garnered attention outside of the Beltway, particularly in the media. And it's actually one of the things that's been slowing down the debate over the transportation bill is a question over federal funding of Planned Parenthood. It's always been a contentious issue, but there was a series of undercover videos that were released that have made the issue kind of white hot right now. It's actually one of the things as a result of this push to defund Planned Parenthood. The Senate's no longer going to take up cybersecurity before the recess. At the end of the day, what do you think happens when on this vote?
I don't think the Senate gets 60 votes. They're currently talking about doing it on Monday and then leaving town for their August recess. They have to pass the 60-vote cloture threshold, and I just don't see enough Democrats joining the Republicans. And there are actually some Republicans who may not join as well. Susan Collins of Maine would be one. Mark Kirk of Illinois might be another one. And so as a result, getting to 60 votes is going to be tricky. If they can't get to closure, then of course you don't have the vote. But you're exactly right. This is something that really has captured a lot of attention here. These undercover videos purportedly show representatives of Planned Parenthood discussing the transfer of fetal tissue to research facilities. And some of it's illegal. I mean, you're not allowed to do some of it. And even if it's not illegal, a lot of people, even Hillary Clinton, weighed in and found the videos to be disturbing. So I think people are disturbed, but Planned Parenthood, which receives a little north of $500 million in federal support every year, has plenty of supporters, particularly on the Democratic side of the aisle. And I think that they don't come out of this thing unscathed. I'm sure that there'll be a series of investigations. But the vote on Monday, I'm not optimistic that that'll pass.
Well, this is probably the last time we're going to get a chance to speak before the first Republican presidential debate, which is taking place in Cleveland on August 6th. So I wanted to get real quick just kind of your thoughts on what we can expect. They're saying it's supposed to be the top 10, even though there's been some rumbling that if there's kind of a statistical tie between 10 and 11, in this case, John Kasich and Rick Perry, that actually Fox may choose to include both of them, which I think would be interesting and probably the right decision. But what do you think generally we can expect to see? I mean, for the last couple of weeks, it's been nothing but the Donald Trump show.
Yeah, and I expect the debate to be dominated by Donald Trump and questions about Donald Trump. There were some questions this week about comments he made about a lawyer who wanted to take a break from a deposition and pump some breast milk for her child. And so he certainly is white hot, but even being white hot and sort of inflaming the mainstream media, he continues to lead in the polls and lead in the polls significantly. So my sense is that whether it's 10 or 11 or whatever the number is, that a number of the candidates are going to be taking a shot at the front runner. That's not unusual. They'd do it if it was Jeb Bush. They'd do it if it was John Kasich. They'd do it whoever, because the game plan is to bring the front runner down and elevate yourself. The other thing that I think is going to be disappointing. I'm not a big fan of these giant debates because let's say you have 10 people and the thing's an hour and a half long. I think it averages out to like 15 minutes a person or 12 minutes a person or whatever. And so the premium's going to be to punch through the noise. I mean, you don't want to be a candidate that just says, oh yeah, well, was he really on the stage? I don't remember him saying anything. And so capturing that soundbite that shows up on the 6 o'clock news or the Morning Joe show or whatever the case may be is really going to be the target. And that's going to lead to some, I think, some flamboyant and maybe over-the-top observations that won't necessarily be helpful. But at the end of the day, I don't expect the debate in Cleveland, other than being the first one, to draw a lot of distinctions between the candidates in terms of somebody's going to take off on the polls and somebody's going to tank, unless they really fall on their face. I don't think the format's going to permit anybody to shine and all of a sudden going to be the anointed one, the front runner. The chances of somebody screwing up are pretty dramatic, and everybody's eyes are sort of going to be on Donald Trump to see how he handles himself.
And in fact, the format, traditionally you have opening and closing statements. Fox has already said because there's so many people, there'll be no opening statements. There's probably not going to be any closing statements. So it really is going to be people trying to punch through in these back and forths, trying to get that soundbite that resonates, that leads the next morning.
Yeah, and the successful debater is going to be the one, because the bad thing as a candidate with that format is you're going to be tied to the question, whatever Fox News decides to ask. And so if they ask 5 questions about Donald Trump, and you answer those questions in the way that I guess they want you to answer them, that's all you're going to be able to say. So the successful debater is going to be the one that let's say it's, what do you think of Donald Trump's comments, and you have 2 minutes. You got to sort of say what you think in the first 10 seconds or 15 seconds, and then pivot and use the last minute and a half to talk about what you want to talk about yourself, and to talk about how you would serve as president and distinguish yourself from not only President Obama but the other candidates.
It's definitely going to be must-see TV. I got to admit, I think that this is probably going to be one of the highest-rated debates, certainly this early on.
Yeah, and as a Clevelander, I'm pretty excited. Every time I talk to somebody on the phone, everybody seems to be going to Cleveland. They're hosting a number of parties. There's a number of debate watch parties. The candidates will be busy the day before and the day of, hosting events at different venues throughout Cleveland. I talked to somebody today that's rented the Hard Rock Cafe in Tower City, for instance, for a huge party. And so business is going to be good in Cleveland.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it should be, as a run-up to the convention next year, should be a good show.
Well, my final takeaway is to kind of get a sense from you as we're heading off to the August recess. As you mentioned, we've only got 12 business days in September when they return to actually get things done. One of those days eaten up by the Pope being here. What can we realistically expect to see this Congress do? And frankly, what do they have to do before they leave again?
Well, they have to finish the appropriations process. And as we talked about before, the chance of doing standalone bills is gone. There's no way that you can do the standalone bills, conference with the other body, and get a product to a final vote and then to the president for a signature. So you're looking at an omnibus, and an omnibus, again, being a combination of appropriations bills in a package. Could be all 12 of them, could be 10 of them. You never know what package they're going to put together. But certainly the most controversial, the ones that they have trouble passing on the floor and the ones that already ran into trouble, for instance, the Interior bill, which was pulled from the floor after the flap on the Confederate battle flag. You also have the Labor, Health, and Human Services bill, which is always a lightning rod for amendments and arguments and things of that nature. So the appropriators are going to have a mighty task of coming up with a package that they can get 218 votes for in the House and get a majority in the Senate. It's not going to be an easy task. And normally, in the past, these things would, we'll just do a CR or an omnibus and get to the end of the year or get into next year. But because of the Budget Control Act, because of the President's threaten to veto anything that doesn't spend what he thinks is appropriate on social programs, it's going to be a rough September. And I would be shocked if things are completed by September 30th and you don't have a series of short-term CRs that go potentially through the Christmas holidays because it's going to be that contentious. Aside from that, they have to deal with probably in November the debt ceiling.
God.
Again,
it's like Beetlejuice. If you say it like 3 times, like it shows off. Like, so don't say it again.
All right. Well, but that's something that's looming out there. The Treasury Department keeps recalculating as to what day they can stop or would be able to stop using extraordinary measures, which mean that there'd have to be a debt ceiling vote in place. The last estimates I saw were sometimes in November. And then you have all the other cats and dogs hanging out there. The appropriations bills, the highway bill is still going to have to be dealt with in final form. And they have a lot to do in a very short period of time. I think if I were a member of Congress, I wouldn't make a lot of winter ski plans. I think that they're going to be here certainly through the month of October and November up to Thanksgiving, and I would be shocked if they weren't here for most, if not all, of December.
Well, and does it make it even more complicated that all of this is going to be happening against the backdrop of an increasingly high-profile presidential campaign season, which seems like it starts early and earlier? I mean, we're talking about the first debate next week, and how much more difficult is that going to make it to get things done?
It depends on the Republican side. If somebody emerges as sort of a clear front runner, and that person begins to articulate a series of issues, then the party's going to sort of be tied to that, doing what their standard bearer is suggesting needs to be done. On the Democratic side, Secretary Clinton, as well, who is the front runner, if she becomes more definitive in some of the things that she's saying, then the Democrats are going to hew to that line as well because they're going to want her to be successful. And that's going to muddy the waters. If the if the leading contenders in the major political parties are at odds with what the House and the Senate would normally do, the presidential folks are going to win this, particularly in the fall, as you go into the fall, and then certainly at the beginning of next year.
Well, it's certainly going to be fun to watch, and I know for one, I'm going to be tuned in to the Cleveland debate because I'm not going to want to miss 1 second of this.
Well, I already have my popcorn. I'm ready to go.
Excellent. Congressman Lazaret, thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris.